Hey guys, Cockerpunk here, transducer. Just an inside joke there. So, just coming with you with the conclusion for the 125-foot barrel test. Instead of at 50 feet, we shot pretty much everything in our collection to compare it, because we really wanted an extensive barrel set to see what the differences were. And we punched it out to 125 feet, and we figure if we just shot a smattering of barrels, you know, one in every category, an overbore, an underbore, a one-piece, a two-piece, a matched, a non-matched, something like that, in every category, we can kind of extrapolate the results because of that. So that's why we didn't shoot as many barrels this time. We had a lot of other testing that we wanted to get done too. So, but that test was interesting in and of itself. A lot of people immediately looked at. We have vector. If you guys are interested, the last barrel test conclusion video, I explained where this vector comes from. Basically, the bigger the vector, the worse the accuracy. So, the smaller the vector, the better the accuracy. And we got a vector for average of about 11.5 inches. And we had two of our barrels actually shoot about a 9.5, 9 3/4 vector. Which sounds really significant. 11-inch radius versus a 9-inch radius, that's talking about a huge area. But what it really amounts to here is that, well, one of the 9-inch vectors was a two-piece 21-inch barrel, which a lot of people jumped on immediately as, you know, we know that a 21-inch barrel isn't more accurate than a 14-inch barrel. Why did you get this result? Well, the other barrel that shot a 9 3/4 or whatever was the 10-inch one-piece 685 CP barrel. So we have our longest barrel in the test shooting our best, and our smallest barrel in the test shooting our best. That to me right there means that length, there is no length trend in terms of you know, shorter being better or longer being better. And it turns out when you do the confidence interval calculation, they're both well within the 90% confidence interval. Like I said in previous videos, we calculate confidence intervals because we're taking a 20-shot sample and we're trying to apply that to every shot that this barrel has ever fired, an infinite number of shots essentially. And so to do that we need to multiply, because there's a little bit of an error just inherent in the fact that we can't shoot an infinite number of shots to see how it would perform. We just can't. So that's why we shoot, or that's why we do 20, because it's called a confidence interval or a t-test. And they all shot within that error. We had a couple of, I think we saw a couple of 13s and maybe even a 14. But those were still well within the confidence interval. And what that really means is, you know, all of our barrels pretty much shot the same, with the notable exception of the tribal barrel. We included 2 stock barrels because in the last test we didn't see anything, so we really wanted to include some really crappy barrels to see if they performed well. And the tribal barrel was horrendous barrel. The tribal, if you guys didn't watch my show on the tribal, it's pretty much the Ion, or even cheaper than the Ion, of about 2000, 2001. Just a terrible gun, pretty much. They're really fun. I love playing with my tribal, but they're terrible guns. And stock, they were terrible guns, and I happen to have one of their barrels. And we're talking about things like, looking down the barrel, you can see finish changes, like regions of it will be finished differently than other regions, and the barrel itself is actually painted, so there's overspray on the muzzle where paint had splattered to the inner bore of the barrel. And it's just a terrible barrel. And it's true, it missed the board several times, so we calculated its vector, but I don't quite believe that, because it actually did miss the target a lot. So I mean, it shows that if you really get a shitty enough barrel, it will affect your performance. But the stock autococker barrel, just unported 11-inch 693, just old barrel from an autococker, shot fine, shot like a 12, which is well within the margin of error again. And so what that really tells us is that your barrel doesn't have very much to do with accuracy. Just overall, it just doesn't. Which leads us to that next question. Well, what does affect accuracy? Because if we disprove that the barrel affects accuracy, well, we all know that different guns shoot different accuracies, or different setups, different times of day, different paintballs themselves shoot at different accuracies. So what exactly is providing this difference in accuracy? And so I'm going to quick post in the description of this video a couple of videos that illustrate a phenomenon called vortex shedding. It's a phenomenon about round or spherical things as they fly through the air. What exactly the fluid around them is doing, and it should be really interesting for you to see, because what happens is when we have a paintball, some of the air around it will actually stick to the paintball due to friction, and so that changes the wake around the back of the paintball, which as this wake is changing, it actually forms small little eddies behind the paintball, which obviously cause pressure changes, and pressure changes over areas cause forces. So what we actually get is net forces which try to push the paintball off course. And these vortexes shed at a relatively fixed rate, but on a sphere, their orientation is almost completely random across the back of the paintball. And if their magnitudes are all similar, and they're in a random direction, and they shed fast enough, which on a paintball they shed at hundreds of times per second usually, that they should statistically even out. And we find out that with good spherical paintballs, you know, we can shoot really accurately and shoot really well. And so, and that pretty much backs at the point. But then the problem becomes that paintballs, even the best, are not spherical. And so instead of this being a random orientation across the back of the paintball, it actually has a trend in terms of more will shed from one side than the other, or one orientation from the other, in which case we get a net force that causes that particular paintball to go this way, or instead of going this way, or something like that. And so each individual paintball's shape affects its flight. Now, we can of course try and mitigate these things by having really consistent guns, because if they all start with the identical initial conditions, then meaning velocity and vector, then we should have the best possible pattern. So obviously a good consistent shooting barrel, which we've shown that underboring is the most consistent. Overboring, still very consistent in some cases. And so a good consistent barrel, and we've also seen that barrels affect efficiency again in a huge way. So you know, your barrel choice does reflect performance, but it doesn't affect accuracy. Mostly just good paint will help you shoot more accurately, because it will be more spherical, and therefore the vortexes will shed randomly instead of in some sort of trend, and it will actually cause you to get the best accuracy possible. So that's pretty much my conclusion in terms of barrel accuracy. I mean, it is what it is, and I think we've kind of put this one to the test. We've kind of beat this one to death, you know. But the good news is, you know, your barrel only affects so much, and that's consistency and that's efficiency. But for the most part, as long as your gun shoots reasonably consistent, it doesn't really affect accuracy that much. Your paintballs have more to do with that than your barrel. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Kind of groundbreaking stuff. So, I'll catch you later. I did film the Phantom show, so I'll have that up pretty soon too. But talk to you guys later. Alright, see ya.